Hello, my friends. Today I have some exciting, amazing, mind-boggling information about Arabic parts. This is the marriage of Hellenistic astrology and Harmonic astrology. Okay, let's dig into this. Okay, let's talk about Harmonic astrology first. Then I'll talk about Hellenistic astrology and how Arabic parts have a foot in both camps, you might say. They're part of Hellenistic astrology, but they have qualities of Harmonic astrology, interestingly enough. Okay, Harmonic astrology. Harmonic astrology was developed by John Addey. He published a bunch of books in the, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books in whatever, I guess 4 or 5 books in the 1970s, wrote articles about it. Now, two ideas that come out of this theory of harmonics in astrology are minor aspects, things like 1/5 of a circle, 2/5 of a circle, 1/7, 2/7, 3/7, 1/9, etc. So this is one of the ideas that comes out of this harmonic astrology theory, that you could look at planets in the sky when they're 1/5 of a circle apart, or 2/5 of a circle, etc., rather than the usual angles that have been used of oppositions, squares, trines, and sextiles, and conjunctions, this idea of additional aspects. And actually, Johannes Kepler, way back around 1600, is credited for introducing the idea, but John Addey, around the 1970s, really developed this concept of harmonic astrology more fully than it had been developed before. Now, another idea that makes sense in terms of harmonics, which means you're looking at things like in astrology as being like waves, some kind of wave pattern going on. And so another idea that comes out of harmonics, maybe not emphasized by Addey himself that much, but is the idea that when two planets have the same angular distance as two other planets, they would be in resonance, like two strings set at the same note. To make that a little clearer, here's an example of a shape that could be formed in the sky by 4 planets that would have huge resonance according to harmonic astrology, or at least we could hypothesize that it would very logically. So suppose I've got 4 planets, A, B, C, and D, in your birth chart, for example. Maybe this is Sun, Moon, Mars, and Jupiter, or whatever, any 4 planets. So the planets A and D just happen to have the same angle as B and C in somebody's chart. Now, what happens if there are 2 sets of planets A and D, that have the same angle as B and C? What happens is that there are actually 2 pairs of planets that are the same, that have the same angular distance. The angle from A to C is going to be the same as B to D. Duh. And I say duh because once I point it out, you go, oh yeah, obviously. But we don't tend to notice it. So when you have, one set of planets, A and D, and another pair, B and C, and they happen to have the same angle, then A to C angle is going to be the same as B to D, because the angle from A to C is this plus this, and the angle from D to B is this, which we just said is the same as this, plus that same distance. So whenever 2 pairs of planets have the same angular distance, there are actually 2 resonances that go on. Now, to make this a little more concrete, here's an example with actual real-life planets instead of A, B, C, D. Let's call it Sun, Moon, Jupiter, and Saturn. So suppose you're doing somebody's chart, and this is the chart wheel, and say Sun is up here near the 11th house cusp or something, and Jupiter's over here in the 12th, and Moon is over here in the 9th house, and Saturn's over here in the 7th, something like that. And it just happens to be that the Moon-Saturn angle happens to be the same as the Sun-Jupiter angle, even if it's not an aspect, even if it's not a sextile or anything, just whatever it is. Could be 48 degrees, 53 degrees, whatever it is. If this is 53 degrees, this is 53 degrees. If that happens, number one, according to this idea that Addey has and that Kepler had and other people had, that there's some kind of music of the spheres, this mystical idea that the universe is singing, it's ringing out these notes somehow. Then if this distance is the same as this distance, maybe they're ringing the same tone. Boing! This is going boing, and this is going boing, and then they resonate together. Then that would mean, because Moon-Saturn angle is the same as Sun-Jupiter, then Sun to Saturn angle is the same as the Moon-Jupiter angle. So what happens is, this is called an isosceles trapezoid. In geometry, where this angle is the same as this angle, it's like a square, but you've pushed in the sides by the same amount, okay? So I'm going to call it an isotrap for short, because I'm lazy and I don't want to say isosceles trapezoid all the time. So an isotrap, you can imagine it as a life-building structure. Maybe that's a little hyperbolic or romantic or something, but let's think of it that way. It's like a life-building structure because it has a double resonance. So it builds this symphony. Now here's the clinching point here to make this really clear. It is impossible to have a single resonance. The way God made the universe, He said, no, we're not going to have single resonances. As soon as you have one resonance, there's going to be a double resonance. So if the Sun-Jupiter is going to have the same angle as Moon-Saturn, then Sun-Saturn will be the same as Moon-Jupiter. So there's a double resonance. You cannot get one pair of planets to have the same angle. So as soon as they have the same angle, you get this tremendous resonance going on. So the isotrap, again, my shortened version for this pattern, which is in geometry called an isosceles trapezoid, the isotrap is almost like this mystical thing that creates powerful resonances in the world. It's like an anti-entropy force in life that as soon as there's a building of energy through this resonance, there'll be a double resonance. So these patterns, according to harmonics, should be important, just theoretically. Now, probably most astrologers, aren't that deeply into this idea of music of the spheres and finding it in the astrology charts. But let's just suppose that maybe there's something to this idea of looking at the planetary angles as being some kind of sound or vibration that's given off. Then you would have this idea that isotraps are incredibly important, like hugely, massively important. Now, Arabic parts. Let's get back to Arabic parts. This marriage of Hellenistic astrology and Harmonic astrology. Well, how do Arabic parts fit into this? Well, first of all, Arabic parts are an ancient idea. They go all the way back to Hellenistic astrology. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. So it's an ancient idea. Now here's the point. Arabic parts are closely related to isotraps. So this ancient idea of Arabic parts geometrically is related to an isotrap. They basically make isotraps. So this is something I think probably most astrologers aren't really aware of or don't care about or don't really notice, but it's a fact. It just is true that Arabic parts form isotraps. How mind-boggling is that? That this very ancient idea happens to form a pattern that, according to harmonics, would be important. Maybe it's a coincidence. I don't think there's any literature from the ancient times saying that this is why Arabic parts are important. But it's true, and I think it's fascinating. So let's learn a little bit more about Arabic parts and how they're related to isotraps. Well, first of all, again, to put Arabic parts into perspective, they were used in Hellenistic astrology. Hellenistic astrology is the astrology practiced in the Mediterranean area, Egypt and what is current-day Turkey and Iraq and that area. Iran, that basic area, a lot of it in the Babylonian area, which is current-day Iran. So in that area, you could say from about 100 AD, which is when the books that were written are still available today, until roughly 700 AD. You could push the date back to 200 BC. It's pretty clear that the books written in the 2nd century refer back to earlier information. So it's in that basic, roughly, that time range. And some of the ideas used in Hellenistic astrology continued to be used through the Middle Ages. And one of the ideas is the Arabic parts. Actually, they were called lots, is our current translation for what they're referred to in a lot of the Hellenistic literature. And later on, we started calling them Arabic parts because we didn't know about the Hellenistic astrology very much, and we just read about what the Arabs said in the Middle Ages. But anyway, or the Arabian area. So what you can call them lots, you can call them Arabic parts. I'll just call them Arabic parts in this video. Okay. So an Arabic part appears to be an arbitrary formula. It looks like some kind of mumbo-jumbo witch's brew, bubble, boil, this stuff together, whammo, presto, throw a frog in there, and then you get this magic point. It seems to have no logic to it. There's the part of fortune. You take the ascendant plus the moon minus the sun. The part of spirit is the ascendant plus sun minus moon. Why I'm going to add these things together, subtract something else, nobody knows. It just looks wacko, but some kind of mystically intuited thing, and you do it. So let's see an example of these Arabic parts. Let's look at the chart of Hank Aaron. He's a baseball player. For no particular reason, just pull up somebody's chart. Here's the chart of Hank Aaron. Here's his ascendant. I'm in Sirius 1.3, by the way. Here's his ascendant, 24 Virgo 35. Here's 0 Aries. So 24 Virgo 35 is actually... Oh, here's 0 Aries, sorry. Here's 0 Aries. 30, 60, 90, 120, 150 plus 24 is 174 degrees, 35 minutes. So 24 Virgo really means you're 174 degrees from 0 Aries. So you take the 174 degrees, 35 minutes, and if you're doing the part of spirit, you add the sun, which is 16 Aquarius. If you figure that out, it's 316 degrees and 37 minutes, minus the moon, which is 0 Scorpio 30, 210 30, and you add all that together, and add those two and subtract the moon, blah blah blah, and you get this point. And back to my little presentation here, 174.35 plus, that's the ascendant, plus the sun, minus the moon, comes out to 280 degrees 42 minutes. You convert that back to zodiac, it's 10 Capricorn 42. So when we look at the wheel, there it is, 10 Capricorn 42, and this little thing that looks like a circle with two little wiggly things coming down from it is the part of spirit. And there it is, part of spirit, some magical point that just stuck in there. And the part of fortune, which is ascendant plus moon minus sun, if you do that same business and take this plus this minus this, there it is, 8 Gemini 27. So these little mystical points you stick in the chart, and this tells you where your fortune is, and this tells you where your spirit is, more like your, I guess that might be more like your path for achievement and self-development, self-awareness, and so on. There's different ideas about what it means, but I want to just focus on the fact that these things were used in ancient times, and some interesting features of these that haven't been noticed very often, such as, whoops, I clicked on the wrong thing. Sorry about that. Let me get rid of that. I should have closed all my windows here. Okay, so I'm back to my presentation. Sorry about that. Okay, now, so these weird formulas for Arabic parts, less emphasis has been placed on the Arabic parts in modern times. and by astrologers who are inclined to a scientific point of view, because there doesn't seem to be any rationale to them. And then, by the way, in the ancient times, I have a note here, if you're born at night, they would swap fortune and spirit. So part of fortune becomes part of spirit, and spirit becomes fortune if you're born at night. So now that's another idea, but so it gets a little more complicated. But basically, we'll just look at it as ascendant plus moon minus sun was a part of fortune. Ascendant plus sun minus moon is part of spirit. Unless you're born at night, then some people reverse them, and spirit becomes fortune, fortune becomes spirit. Okay. Now, what is an Arabic part? I'm claiming that there's some connection of Arabic parts to harmonics. It might be a coincidence. I'm not saying that the ancients knew this. I don't think there's any evidence that they described it this way. Maybe there is a translation that will come out that will show that they did. I'm just saying it's a fact, and it's an interesting fact, that if you take 3 points, like suppose here's Sun, Moon, and Jupiter, just any 3 planets, an Arabic part would be the 4th point of the isotrap. How cool is that? The Arabic part makes this huge resonance. That's what it is. I mean, mathematically, geometrically, that's a fact. We can't change the facts. That's true. You can't argue the facts. Now here's a case where Sun, Moon are on one side of the chart, Jupiter's over here. Doesn't matter how they're spread out. Here I pulled Jupiter up closer to the Sun and Moon, and then this would be a 4th point. So the Arabic part is the point that, according to harmonic astrology, would cause the Sun, Moon, and Jupiter to vibrate. Because if you stuck something here, then you would have something that would have the same distance from the Sun as the Moon is from Jupiter. So this would vibrate to this, and then this point, this Arabic part, if there's a transiting planet or somebody else's planet in another chart comes here, then that point's going to vibrate to the Moon with the same vibration as Sun to Jupiter. You get the double resonance. So an amazingly interesting thing is that Arabic parts are actually harmonic points. Amazing. Now, this can be upsetting to some people because they feel that harmonic astrology is modern and it's scientific, and ancient astrology is a different paradigm to it, and you shouldn't mix these guys together. Well, calm down. I'm just telling you that this is a fact. So you have to deal with those facts. It just is what it is. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe the ancients actually knew this. Maybe harmonic astrology is not so different from Hellenistic astrology. We don't know, but this is a fact. That's what the Arabic part is. Now, it gets more interesting. Let's play with this idea that maybe this is not a coincidence. Maybe this is part of what makes an Arabic part important. Let's just entertain that idea. Well, then, it gets more and more interesting. Given 3 points, let me go back to the previous slide. Given 3 points, Sun, Moon, and Jupiter, I have an Arabic part here. You know what? There's 2 others. Given 3 points, there are always 3 other points that make an isotrap. You got it? This is not the only one. There might be one. I mean, if I'm real clever, I might be able to figure out there's one over here, probably. Like it would go, chung, chung, chung. There's going to be 3 of them, always. 3 other points that will cause these 3 to vibrate. In other words, that will make an isotrap. That's just true. That's just the mathematics of it. So I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you on the next slide Hank Aaron's chart, and I'll show you these 3 other points. And these are the formulas for them. One is if my 3 points are the 3 major, most important points in the chart, according to probably most astrologers, the Ascendant, Moon, and Sun. Fortune, as we mentioned, the modern formula and the ancient formula if you're born during the day is Ascendant plus Moon minus Sun, right? I showed you that. Well, actually, I showed you this one, part of Spirit. Ascendant plus Sun minus Moon. So, and there's a third one that was usually not used, which would be Sun plus Moon minus Ascendant. Actually, what you do is you add 2 points and put a minus in front of one of them. Here I have minus in front of the Sun, here I have minus in front of the Moon, here I have minus in front of the Ascendant. So, there are actually 3 points, only 2 of which were commonly used, and still commonly used, and this one's not used. The tendency with Arabic parts was to start with the Ascendant, not to subtract it. But, mathematically or geometrically, why not? Why can't I do Sun plus Moon minus Ascendant? I would in fact get the third of the 3 isotraps. So, again, astrologers use only Fortuna and Spirit. Usually, that's all they use. But following up this idea, developing a theory that isotraps might be the power behind Arabic parts, there's a third one. Al-Biruni, according to one source, I didn't find the original text, but according to another astrologer, he did use this, and he called it the part of redemption. Well, let me show you the 3 points in somebody's chart. Okay, here is Hank Aaron's chart. We looked at his wheel a minute ago, and there's that Ascendant with 24 Virgo, and his Moon at 0 Scorpio, and his Sun at 16 Aquarius. I wrote it real big here, Ascendant, Moon, Sun. And here's that part of Spirit that we calculated at 10 Capricorn. And there's the isotrap, the red one. See that? Now this one looks longer because I didn't draw it very well. I wrote Ascendant up here and I put it there, and really the Ascendant's down here, so I didn't draw it very well. But this is actually 35 degrees, 55 minutes. This is 35 degrees, 55 minutes. Again, as I said, the Arabic part makes that 4th point of the isotrap. It's the point from the Sun. That's the same as the Moon to the Ascendant. There's the isotrap. Now, if I go 35 degrees to the other side of the Sun, I get this green isotrap. See that green one? Again, this one might look bigger because I didn't draw it very well. But anyway, it's a perfect isotrap. Again, 35 degrees, 55 minutes. So this is another point that makes a resonance with the Ascendant, Moon, and Sun. That happens to be redemption. And Fortune, Ascendant plus Moon minus Sun, is here, the purple one, and if you follow it, it goes down here, across here, up here, and there. This is like the base of it, and this angle, 106 degrees, 8 minutes, is the same as this. And of course there's a double resonance, so for every one of these, it's not just 2 sides that are the same. So for example, for this one, if we calculate the angle, or we look it up in an aspect table that you can get in Sirius or any other software, you could get that angle, and the angle from here to here is going to be the same as here to here, if I'm thinking about that right. So you got a double resonance. I'm just showing you the 2 sides that are the same. Okay, bottom line, there are 3 isotraps formed to any 3 points. If we use the 3 big ones, Sun, Moon, Ascendant, you have the part of Fortune, part of Spirit, and then a third one that's rarely used, part of redemption. So, if you look, okay, so that's one fascinating thing. Well, before I go on, one fascinating thing is that the Arabic parts are the 4th points of an isotrap, and according to harmonics, that should be a really powerful point. Next thing that's interesting about the part of Fortune and part of Spirit is how they move through the day. The part of Fortune and part of Spirit throughout the day stay in about the same house. In a little over 2 days, close to 2.5 days, they will move to the next house. So they move very slowly through the day, and they spin around the zodiac with the new moon from one new moon to the next new moon cycle. Let me show that to you. So this is just a fascinating thing, which is going to lead us to another interesting observation. Here I have Hank Aaron's chart. Let me go to the time adjust, and I've got Spirit down here and Fortune here. I'm going to go to time adjust. And I'm going to tell it to go back to the previous new moon. Sun, moon, previous. I selected this before I started the video, and it remembers my last selection. Sun, moon, previous. So I'm going to tell it to find the time of the previous sun, moon. He was born on February 5th, 1934. It'll probably be in mid-January. And it found it. It's exactly mid-January. January 15. Here's the sun and moon conjunct. Well, when the sun and moon are conjunct, where is the part of fortune? Excuse me. It's conjunct the ascendant, because the formula is ascendant plus moon minus sun, and part of spirit, ascendant plus sun minus moon. So if the person is born at new moon, fortune and spirit are conjunct the sun. Now, if I add, let me add 6 hours. I tell it to put in 6 hours here. What I'm saying is that the part of fortune and spirit are going to move slowly through the house. If I go 6 hours, now the whole chart is spun around dramatically, but fortune has only moved, about 4 degrees in this direction. Oh, that's spirit, 4 degrees in this direction. Fortune has moved this way. It's about 3.5 degrees for each of them. They've actually moved the same distance. Now, you'll see, if I go another 6 hours, now there's so many other things moving around, you may not notice it, but here's spirit. It moved up a little further. Fortune moved down. Another 6 hours. And fortune and spirit stay in, spirit in the 12th, fortune in the 1st, moving very slowly through the houses. Now I think, a day later. I don't know how many times I clicked here. And they're still here. So they're moving slowly. If I keep clicking, you'll see that spirit, as I click, is moving very slowly. If you watch spirit or you watch fortune, as I keep adding 6 hours, it moves very slowly around, which of course makes sense if you think about the formula. It's the ascendant plus moon minus sun for fortune, so it's moving a few degrees at a time. And as we approach full moon, they're going to reach here. So what happens is, spirit and fortune, or here's fortune and spirit, are symmetrical around the ascendant. So they move around like mirror images until it's full moon and they're here, and then they come back again. It's just an interesting observation. If I speed this up to 3 days, we'll see it move faster. Okay, here's spirit, here's fortune. 3 days later, spirit's up here, fortune's down there. You see they're symmetrical. 3 days later, they're coming in towards the 7th house, and 3 days later, they're here near the descendant. So they've moved in, and it's full moon. It's just past full moon, and so they've moved in here. It's just before full moon. Sun is 10 Aquarius, moon is 8 Leo. Just before full moon, and here's fortune and spirit. When I add 3 more days, they're going to cross over, and fortune will be on this side coming back. So after full moon, here's fortune. If you're born on the waning moon, your part of fortune, and I keep doing it, is going to be in the upper part of the chart. So you're actually, the part of fortune and spirit are like mapping the lunar cycle against the ascendant, in a sense. It's taking the moon minus the sun and mapping it past the ascendant. So they're symmetrical. Here they'll be equidistant from the ascendant. So that's interesting. Going back to my presentation, they spin around the ascendant symmetrically. Now with the ancient formula, the part of spirit stays on the same, will stay above the horizon with the sun during the waxing moon, and it'll be opposite to the sun on the waning moon. So it's I don't want to go into all those details and try to get you to memorize that or something. It's maybe not that critically important, but I just want to show you that the part of fortune, part of spirit spin around, staying in the same house for a little over 2 days, and gradually moving around the zodiac with the lunar cycle. Now, the part of fortune spins around the zodiac like crazy, really fast, in 12 hours, because what's happening is it subtracts the ascendant. As the ascendant moves forward, it moves backwards. You're subtracting the ascendant. It's Sun plus Moon minus the ascendant. The ascendant gets bigger, moves forward, so it spins really fast. Here's a wheel I created. I didn't create. I mean, it's available in Sirius 1.3, also in Kepler, called an asteroids wheel. I'll show you how you select it if you right-click and you go to Special. It's the Arabic Parts wheel. What did I say? Asteroids? I meant to say Arabic Parts wheel. So you select this Arabic Parts wheel, and then you can go to Customize, and you can select what Arabic parts. You click on Select Arabic Parts, and you select what Arabic parts you want. You can customize the set, and so I did that, and I put just those 3 asteroids in there. I'll cancel out of all this stuff. Cancel, 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 and I'm back to my wheel, Arabic parts wheel, and I'll show you what happens here. I'm using the modern formula, which, by the way, if I right-click and I go to Customize, I select whether I want the modern or ancient formula right here, and I've selected the modern formula, and I've also selected the modern formula for the Arabic parts in the outer wheel. So here's fortune. This is Hank Aaron's chart, up here in the 9th house, and here it just repeats it, ascendant plus moon minus sun. So there's fortune, there's spirit, and this one must be redemption, because this has got fortune with it. This has got part of spirit on the inside wheel, showing me that this is confirmed. It also tells me here which is which, but anyway, it's a nice visualization for this teaching purpose. I got spirit, and if I add 1 hour, I'll go to time adjust. Nice thing about this time adjust, you can adjust anything you're looking at. You could be looking at midpoints or an astromap, or I happen to be looking at this asteroids wheel. I'll adjust this by 1 hour, and let's see what happens. Relative to the ascendant, these guys won't move, fortune and spirit, but this part of redemption will. I go forward 1 hour, and look how it jumps in 1 hour. I mean, in 1 hour it goes a whole house. It's just flying around. I'll go just notice fortune and spirit, they stay almost in the same spot in terms of where they are in the houses. I'll go 1 more hour. This is only 2 hours after he was born. My redemption's way down here. 3 hours, 4 hours, here it is now, 5 hours, 6 hours. It spins around in about 12 hours. Okay, so it's going to go very, very fast around here. If I add 6 more hours, it'll be almost back to where it was, a little bit less than where it started from. So there you go. The part of redemption flies around the zodiac because it's sun plus moon minus the ascendant, and in 12 hours it goes all the way around. You might think it would be 24 hours. It's actually only 12 because you're subtracting the ascendant keeps getting bigger. Anyway, that's the way it works. So these fortune and spirit are, you might say, similar. They're more compatible. They move symmetrically through the 29 days, approximately 29 days of the called synodic cycle, the cycle of the sun-moon from conjunction to conjunction, from new moon to new moon. They move very slowly from the ascendant. The ascendant is like the starting point of your chart. They move very slowly through the 29 days. They're symmetrical around, and they come back again. And while they're doing that, the part of redemption is spinning around like a madman, really fast, twice a day, instead of taking 29 days. So it's interesting, and which makes sense. You're subtracting the ascendant. The ascendant moves fast, but it's super fast, twice a day, while these guys go around. And while all that's happening, it's making perfect isotraps. Fascinating, isn't it? How these things are moving really fast, making perfect isotraps. And another thing that's interesting, by the way, is this, and this gets really fascinating, is going back to my PowerPoint. I showed you that part of fortune and part of spirit are symmetrical around the ascendant, right? They spin symmetrically around the ascendant. The part of redemption, I'm calling POR for redemption, spins around the zodiac, and not the zodiac, spins, that's the wrong word, spins around the chart wheel. Well, actually it spins around the zodiac too, that's true. It spins around the whole thing in about 12 hours, actually slightly more than 12 hours. And here's the symmetries. This is fascinating. And I think it tells us, it may be giving us a hint, I believe it is, about why spirit is spirit and fortune is fortune. Why ascendant plus moon minus sun would be fortune. The part of fortune and part of spirit are symmetrical around the ascendant, right? We saw that. We saw how over 29 days they're symmetrical around the ascendant. The part of fortune, I'm using the modern formula, ascendant plus moon minus sun, and part of redemption are symmetrical around the sun. Oh no, I wrote that wrong. It's part of, boy oh boy, part of spirit and part of redemption are symmetrical around the sun. Part of fortune and part of redemption are symmetrical around the moon. Oh boy, I'd hate to redo this. I'll put a little note up here to correct that. This should say part of spirit and part of redemption are symmetrical around the sun. So the part of redemption is like a mirror image. Let me show you. If I go to Sirius and we just take this chart, the part of fortune, I'm just taking whatever moment, well, I'll cancel out of this. Let's go back to Hank Aaron's natal chart. What I'm saying is, here's his sun. Here's the part of spirit. Here's the part of redemption. It may not look like it because the way this is spread out, but 16 Aquarius to 22 Pisces is about 36 degrees. I go 36 degrees earlier from 16 Capricorn. From 16 Aquarius, I'm at 10 Capricorn. The part of spirit and the part of redemption surround the sun. That's what I'm saying. Just fortune and spirit surround the ascendant. They're symmetrical around the ascendant. Spirit and redemption are symmetrical around the sun. So this means redemption is like the Holy Spirit. It's like this whizzing by fast shadow that whizzes around really fast twice a day, every 12 hours, and forms a balance to this Arabic part. And this Arabic part of spirit, balances with fortune around you. The ascendant is you. It's like the guiding point in the chart. So this is like you can look at it as like the Holy Spirit, and this is like the sun part, the Father God. Moon is like the Mother God. So the Father God and the Holy Spirit surround the sun. Now I may be getting wild in my mythology here, but I'm just giving you an intuition as to how you can think of this. And so the sun, the spirit, is in between the part of spirit and the part of redemption. And similarly, the part of fortune is in between, the moon is in between the part of fortune and the part of redemption. So here's moon. It happens to be opposite it at this moment, but this is the same distance to the part of fortune and part of redemption. So this may be why fortune is connected with the moon, and redemption is this very fast-moving point that creates a mirror image to the moon. So the moon has its part of fortune and its mirror image, the fast-moving mirror image redemption that is like the shadow or mirror part of fortune. So fortune and redemption to the moon, spirit and redemption to the sun. These are just facts. Maybe this mythology and imagery I'm giving is not related to it. Maybe it is related. Maybe the ancients knew this. Maybe that's why they called it fortune. And if you're born at night, fortune becomes spirit, because if you're born at night, the sun is hidden, so you're connected to the moon, to God as mother, and so since God is more maternal, if you're born at night, you could say your spirit or your path becomes the moon. So they reverse it. This is, just hypothetical ways of thinking about it that help reinforce your understanding of the amazing geometry involved, the way these things are spinning around, creating these symmetry, creating these beautiful patterns. Is it a coincidence? Did the ancients not realize this? Did nobody ever notice it until the 21st century? I don't, or 20th century, or recent times? I rather doubt it. I suspect somebody back there, they knew geometry, they knew some pretty sophisticated mathematics and stuff. The astrologers were astronomers. I suspect the books have been lost, but that's just my guess. And they might have been aware of this. The coincidences are too strong. Even the meanings that I'm giving maybe are not so far-fetched. Whoops, I keep clicking on the wrong thing. Sorry about that. I should close it. So back to my PowerPoint. Here's, I mentioned, the part of redemption is like a mirror image. It's like a Holy Spirit, spirit flying around, making a reflection point around the sun for the part of spirit and around the moon for the part of fortune. If you're born at night, the moon is your spirit, God is mother, and maybe the sun is the complement to this. And part of fortune, part of spirit are the guiding points for your life because they surround the ascendant. Interesting ideas. Regardless of the interpretation, regardless if my mythology and imagery here is useful or not for astrological interpretation, or whether it has anything to do with how the ancients might have been thinking or what might be going on, it helps reinforce your appreciation for the complex, beautiful tapestry of planetary motions that are going on, and how the Arabic parts create this beautiful patterning and mirror images and symmetry and resonating angles. It's really fascinating how simple planetary motions can create this beautiful tapestry. I'm at 42 minutes. You like to only go a half hour. I'm done. So my final point is the mystery of astrology. Did Hellenistic astrologers know that the part of fortune, spirit, and redemption formed isotraps? I don't know. We don't know. Did they know about the symmetries that were formed? Did they attach meanings similar to what I have in the previous slide? We don't know. Did the search for a music of the spheres, which goes back to at least Pythagoras and precedes the Hellenistic astrology era, did it influence the development of the theory of Arabic parts? That they are harmonic points? We don't know. So there it is. We don't know. Some astrologers are very certain and very emotional about what is right, and this can become like a religious war. But it doesn't need to. We can explore these ideas, and personally I'd rather accept the mystery of all these things rather than prematurely jump to conclusions. I personally believe harmonic astrology will grow and develop in the future. I think it works, and I think as we work with it and do more research with it, we will see it. So I think that these relationships are important to know about. But in any case, it's fascinating. You probably learned some things about Arabic parts you didn't know about before, and what you make out of it and what you conclude, of course, is up to you. There's so much to learn, and as the astrologers keep translating and digging up more information, we'll find out how conscious the ancients were of the harmonic concepts that are actually embedded in ideas like Arabic parts. Could be coincidence, could have been conscious, we don't know. Or at least I don't know. Maybe some of the latest researchers in the ancient, who read these ancient languages and stuff, have more updated information on it. There you go. I'm at nearly 45 minutes. This is a long video. I hope you enjoyed that. A lot of information. You can always watch the video again and probably absorb a little bit more from it the second or third time through. Thank you very much for listening. Sorry I'm talking so fast. I just wanted to share all that and get that into one video. Thank you very much. Take care. God bless. Namaste.